love that song. What's the name of that one? Does anybody know? If you're over 50, you're probably going to get it. If not, you may not. All right, that's the song I love called Que Sera. That was another version. We don't need another version. All right, so Que Sera, Sera. That's the name of the song, which in translated means whatever will be, will be. And for those of us that can remember the great Doris Day, she sang that song in a wonderful movie by Alfred Hitchcock called The Man Who Knew Too Much. And that movie and that song came out in 1956, so quite some time ago. And I love this quote by Hitchcock because I think Hitchcock was this brilliant director, and he's just great. You know, he actually appears in every film, which Stan Lee also does in the Marvel movies. And so I think that's quite brilliant. But I love this quote by him. He apparently had done another movie called The Man Who Knew Too Much in 1934. So I did the math, and that's 22 years apart, okay? So he has this quote. Hitchcock says, when he was asked about the original movie, he said, let's just say this. The first version is the work of a talented amateur, and the second was made by a professional. So, yeah, I love that. You know, always the artist, always the student, always learning. So that's pretty awesome. So Doris Day has this really buoyant voice. I love her voice, and as many of you know, she became an activist with the virus, with HIV, especially because of her great and dear friend, Rock Hudson. And then she also became a really strong animal advocate as well. I think she lived to be in her 90s, if I'm not mistaken, and she just died in May of last year. Yeah, so 2019. So here the words are. Here the words are to Que Sera, Sera, with Doris Day. When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, "What will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich?" Here's what she said to me. Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. The futures are not ours to see. Que sera, sera. When I was young, I fell in love. I asked my sweetheart what lies ahead. We will have rainbows day after day. Here's what my sweetheart said. Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. Now I have children of my own. They ask their mother, what will I be? Will I be handsome? Will I be rich? I tell them tenderly, que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. Isn't that great? It's very simple, but it's so uplifting, you know? It's just truly, truly, truly uplifting. So that's our song for this Friday night. As always, I'm not taping on Friday. I'm simply posting on Friday night because the way my schedule comes out. So what I was thinking about with this is, you know, last week we were talking about shedding and transforming because we're shedding, and that great story about molting your skin. It goes into the river, and the woman puts it back on because her daughter doesn't recognize her, and this idea of letting others stop us from our transformation and our need to shed, which is ongoing all the time. So I thought about Que Sera, whatever will be, will be. And it made me think of this great story. And I don't have a book to go with it. It's not a Mark Nepo story. But it came to me somehow. And so I will read that to you next. And then hopefully we'll see how it connects. So here's the story. A beautiful girl in the village was pregnant. Her angry parents demanded to know who was the father. At first, resistant to confess, the anxious and embarrassed girl finally pointed to Hakuin, the Zen master whom everyone previously revered for living such a pure life. When the outraged parents confronted Hakuin with their daughter's accusation, he simply replied, "Is that so?" When the child was born, the parents brought it to Hakuin, who now was viewed as a pariah by the whole village. They demanded that he take care of the child since it was his responsibility. Is that so? Hakuin said calmly as he accepted the child. For many months, he took very good care of the child until the daughter could no longer withstand the lie she had told. She confessed that the real father was a young man in the village whom she had tried to protect. The parents immediately went to Hakuin to see if he would return the baby. With profuse apologies, they explained what had happened. Is that so? Hakuin said as he handed them the child. Wow! Imagine that. Imagine that happening to you. Maybe some version of that has happened to you. But to have that discipline and awareness to simply respond with, is that so? So when I was looking up this story on this website, it was kind of cool because they had like responses from people or like what their interpretation could be. And I thought, oh, that could be interesting, right? So obviously there always has to be a really transparent, funny one. And that one was simply, this kills me, that girl is a lying slut, okay? So that was one person's interpretation, but I don't think we're supposed to go to the judgment one, okay? Although we could. But I like some of these other interpretations. So one is this, that the master has achieved complete acceptance of every person, situation, and emotion. He has no fear of being unjustly labeled. He receives the child and gives up the child with the same peace of mind. He is both detached observer and a complete participant. So that balance is an amazing feat. So I really like that interpretation of it. Another one is people saying something does not make it true. Knowing yourself is the most important thing. Yeah. What do they say? To know others is wisdom, to know yourself is enlightenment. Yeah, I'd go with that. I like this one. To be in harmony with the world. The world is constantly changing, as are we, but we keep our sense of harmony with it. And lastly, truth. What is it? So, I don't know if you noticed, but in the piece I was doing, Que Sera, I didn't always take the lead. I didn't always use the melody. You know, as violists, we really do live the, is that so? In the sense that we are not usually the ones with the greatest voice and are many times supportive. And so when we think about what we want to create in our own world and our own transformation, can we say to situations, you know, is that so? It's a tough one, but well worth the effort. So an author that I would recommend in this lesson is simply Don Miguel Ruiz. I love his work. This is the companion book. The original 4 Agreements is the name of the book that I actually want you to think about, right? The 4 Agreements. He speaks of this as one of his 4 agreements is to not take anything personally. And how insidious that can be and how the voices can go off in our heads when we're in certain situations. I remember there is a word in that book that I read a long time ago, and it's a Toltec word because he's from the lineage of the Toltec. And the word is matote. I love that word. When I read that word, I was like, man, that even has a nice rhythm to it, you know? So in his book, he explains the matote is the inability to see the truth, is a fog of perception. The matote clouds our vision so we can't see who we really are. We can't see that we are not free. We create an image of who we should be in order to be liked, loved, and good enough. But this image isn't real. So it's literally a fog. And I love this other definition of matote that I found later, which is this. Matote is defined simply as, quote, the chaos of 1,000 voices all trying to talk at once in the mind. Yeah, who can't relate to that, right? So I thought a lot about this, you know, idea of is that so, and the idea of non-attachment to labels and what people are saying about you. Imagine if we practice that. Like, I swear to God, we could get rid of Twitter. It, it would just go away. And wouldn't that be nice? I don't understand Twitter, honestly. I'm not in judgment of it, but I've never understood why we'd want to hear the chaos, like literally read the chaos of everybody's mind. Because I have enough work with my own. I don't need other chaos going off and being in my sphere. If we all practice just, is that so? None of this would stick. You know, none of that Twitter stuff would stick. So my personal experience with this, I'm just simply going to reference this great doctor named Dr. Gisolfi at Inova Mount Vernon, which is a hospital in my area. And they literally have a gold ribbon for their care of people doing rehab of all kinds. Doesn't matter, all kinds of rehab. And he created this program in like the 70s, right? This rehab program, and put him on the map. So of course, I wanted the best for my husband when he got sick, and he ended up going there for multiple times. But the first time he was there was the scariest, because you really don't know what you're dealing with. And I had a ton of doctors coming at me saying, oh, you know, he's not going to do this, he's not going to do that. He'll never be able to do this. This will always be an issue. He'll never get off these cognitive drugs. A lot of stuff about, you know, what it was going to be. And every day I was learning more about brain injury, but every day I was getting bombarded with this kind of thinking. And so Dr. G would come in at the end of his rounds at night, and I would always be there. And he would sit with me, and I would ask him a ton of questions. I'd say, oh, Dr. So-and-so said this, or this therapist said that. And he would just say, okay. Just stare at me. And then he would turn and talk to Ron. And then he'd turn back and he'd look at the chart and kind of look over the notes. He'd go, okay, keep doing the therapy. And then he'd just walk out. I'm like, okay. I mean, for 3 months, like, I heard just keep doing the therapy from the Zen master, you know. And what I did is I started to develop this ability to go, oh, yeah, okay, I don't need to listen to the chaos. I can simply say, oh, well, thank you, Dr. Hoo-Hoo. I don't need to absorb that right now. I'm going to focus on therapy. And that guided me. I mean, that guided me for years, you know. I kept Ron in therapy for 3 years solid of managed therapy like that through the hospital setting. And then 2 more years beyond that in more private settings as he progressed. So, is that so? Do your therapy. It kind of became my mantra. And, you know, never underestimate love, and never underestimate the will of somebody to want to get better and to transform. So, today was a little bit longer. I apologize for that. But that idea of is that so is transformative. And I think it would be very valuable in our world, especially now, with all the chaos going on, with too many voices going off, to be a little quieter and to just simply have a singular response of is that so. It's a great lesson. All right, everybody, thank you for joining me for Que Sera Sera. I invite you to watch the movie. Check out Doris Day. Her voice is sunshine. If there is such a thing, her voice is sunshine, and it will always lighten and brighten your day. Okay? All right, thank you. I'll see you next time. Bye.